Welcome to another edition of Great Health, Abundant Happiness, and Outrageous Love. Mwah.
Social distance kissing only.
I hate when that happens.
I know.
Hey, so we wanted to do this video. We're going to do a quick one. We wanted to just share with you what's been going on. We have been told that we have the coronavirus, Karen and I. So why don't you dig into the story
and
here?
we were going to do it live so that we could have interactive questions, but you know, we never know the window of when I'm going to feel so good, and my window is just about over, so I actually wrote some notes so I can read through them pretty quickly. So here's what we know. I got a fever of 102.7, accompanied with the worst headache I've ever had, and the headache wouldn't go away. There was no break in that headache. In addition, I had body aches head to toe. My fingers hurt, they still hurt, it hurts to move them. My toes, my torso, my back and my torso were the most painful. It felt like they were on fire from the inside, and that they were gonna, my whole body was just gonna snap. It really was the most excruciating pain. In addition, I was nauseated. So those were my symptoms. The other symptom I had that was a little odd was my back was very sensitive to touch, my skin. So if Jeffrey even touched it lightly, or if I was laying in bed and I moved, it hurt like someone was ripping my skin off. So those symptoms started on Tuesday, and we were diagnosed in a doctor appointment over the phone on Wednesday, where they told us they presumed that we had the coronavirus. And I say we, Jeffrey will go over his symptoms, which were totally different than mine, but we were diagnosed in one phone call.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna finish mine, and then Jeffrey can talk about his, because it is weird that they're so different. So I was told to try to get the fever down, this is all Wednesday, to drink 100 ounces of fluids, to rest, and most importantly, just be aware of any changes, specifically any breathing difficulties, and to pick up an oximeter so that we could ensure that we had, you know, enough oxygen in our systems. The next day was absolutely worse. I could barely handle the pain. You know, for those of you who have known me a long time, you know that I don't take medication, and that I gave natural childbirth. Thank you, Taylor Ann, 26 hours of that with no medication. So I certainly know what pain feels like, and I was able to handle that. This was unbearable. It was just unbearable. I was up, I was down, I just couldn't get comfortable the entire night. I couldn't get my fever down. My head was pounding. I wanted to throw up. I mean, there was nothing I could do to get any feeling of comfortableness. So the symptoms, they weren't even staying the same. They were exasperating, they were getting worse. So the next morning, that Thursday, we called the doctor back, and although we aren't at high risk, you know, we're not in the age range, and we don't have any existing health issues. If anything, we're super healthy. Again, for those of you who know us, we're strict plant-based eaters. I have been since 2012. We don't take any medications, you know, on a regular basis. I have Lyme, which I treated myself. I was diagnosed with it medically, but I treated it myself with tinctures so that I wouldn't have to, you know, be on any kind of medications for that, and I was able to put that into check. So it's very frustrating, but because I couldn't get my fever down and the pain, they did ask me to come in, and they, at which time they went through the standard protocol, which is to give the standard flu test, which came back negative immediately, and then they followed that up with the COVID-19 test. We have not gotten the results back on that. They did tell me, you know, assume that you've got it, and assume that Jeffrey has it. My symptoms are, I don't want to say classic because they're so different than Jeffrey's, but my symptoms are in alignment with some other people who tested positive as well. And that's the precarious thing, is that everybody's just a little bit different. And then I do want to say that, on Friday, my fever did not get over 100, which was amazing. I had upped my dosage of Tylenol.
And that was key.
And that was key in helping get my fever down, in the 100 mark. And then today I have been fever free, and I've actually had a fairly good day. I just feel incredibly weak and exhausted. And in fact, we're going to crawl into bed right after this video. But first I want, you to hear about Jeffrey's symptoms, because, if you're not assimilating with mine, don't assume that you don't have it, because Jeffrey's were so incredibly different than mine.
Yeah, well, it's been very public. People have been interviewed that had it, that they have no symptoms at all, and they have no illness at all. I mean, they're walking around like they're normal.
Right.
So it's all over the boards, but my situation was totally different. I did have the fever on that Tuesday night, the first night, and I couldn't get warm. It was one of those where I got in bed with all of my clothes on and put all the covers over, and actually came out here and grabbed an extra fur blanket to throw over the top. That's the cough, by the way, if you haven't heard it. It's a dry cough. I have the same. So I had that fever, and I was like doing a meditation in the middle of the night, and I broke the fever, and I don't know if I broke it or if it was coincidental, but I felt so much better in the middle of the night. I didn't have any problems the next day. I was almost normal the next day. I had fever the second night, as Karen did, but again, woke up the next day feeling almost normal. So I have had really none of the aches and pains. I think probably because my fever didn't last. I mean, the aches and pains are usually caused by a fever. So
and you also didn't have the headache.
Yeah, right.
That I had.
Right. Yeah.
But during the fever, your pains were different. I mean, yours were, and I just want you to explain so that everybody understands how we're all presenting.
I think everybody understands a fever aches. I mean, you get achy all over your body. I could feel it behind my eyes. You could feel it in your back. You can just feel the ache. I felt the fever coming before I took a temperature and said, "Oh yeah, I have a fever."
Right.
I had the chills. Obviously, I knew I had a fever. But it was a standard. The standard aches and pains with a fever is the way I would describe it. So anyway, I feel lucky that I wasn't as affected, because I was able to take care of Karen.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so.
Because yours was definitely, and I don't want to minimize it, more bearable.
Yeah. No, it was. And when she talks about the oximeter, that's the meter that you put on your finger. It takes your oxygen rate, the percentage of oxygen you have in your bloodstream, and also your pulse rate. And not only do you not have a fever, but that's been perfect. Actually, the oxygen's been perfect all the way through, and the pulse, because I think it's a lot because of our eating habits. Our heart rate is really low, which is very healthy, and our oxygen level is very high, even though we're at high altitude, which is very healthy.
Exactly. Right? And, but we don't want to take any of that for granted. We're going to continue to monitor like they've told us to.
Right.
We will continue to self-quarantine. Once we have 0 symptoms, which hasn't happened yet, we've been told to quarantine at least 10 days after that. And so we are going to follow all those protocols, and we'll update you when we do get the results of the test, which we're told won't be until mid next week. So we'll update before that. So put your questions down below. We'll try to answer them as best we can. If you have any questions about what we're experiencing, that's really all we can answer.
And we're here. When Karen says quarantine, we're in this condo for, I'm guessing, 20 days. I mean, we're not leaving. We're not going out to go get any food. Luckily, we have plenty of supplies here, so we're good to go. So we're here to answer any questions, and would love to interact with you guys.
Wishing you great health, abundant happiness, and outrageous love from the nest of Copper Mountain. Stay well and stay inside.
Yeah, stay safe.
Peace out.
Thanks, guys.